morning, Bucknutters, and welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 24th, 2017. I am Dave Biddle. I am joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, ESPN's Outside the Lines piece on Kevin Wilson finally aired yesterday and shockingly found nothing egregious about the former Indiana head coach and current Ohio State offensive coordinator. Shockingly.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I saw some hit piece on the Indiana rowing team, but other than that, I didn't even barely see Kevin Wilson's name. It seems pretty clear that they went to hunting to try to get Kevin Wilson, and all they found was a mean rowing coach and some athletic trainers who were just like trying to get the kids on the field. I mean, like if you read the article online, there was literally like no quotes about how Kevin Wilson was mean. One of them even said, "I don't think Coach Wilson knew what was going on." Like the worst thing they said about Kevin Wilson was he's kind of a hard ass. Okay, there's no concussion kids being played here by Kevin Wilson. There's no like yelling at injured players that they're screwing him over and trying to force him to play. Like, the one bad person coming out of it seems like it's the rowing coach. And, frankly, while I'm really sorry for all the kids who had to handle a rowing coach, from an OSU football perspective, it means nothing. So, yeah, Kevin Wilson, Indiana's so stupid for firing this guy, and it looks even dumber now. He did nothing that is even remotely worthy of being fired. And they're going to suck at football again for a couple decades because of it.
It worked out so well for Ohio State. I mean, it's just, you're right. There's no way that this should have led to his firing, but thank goodness it did. And we should call it a forced resignation. He got a buyout. Because I keep pointing out, if he did before we even saw this piece, I kept saying, if he did anything really bad, and I know you were saying the exact same thing, if he did anything really bad, Indiana just would have fired him. This is a school that fired a legend in Bobby Knight in the sport that really matters at that school. And I realize it was different administration, but still, they just would have fired Kevin Wilson. Just like Illinois fired Tim Beckman. They didn't play nice with him because they had enough dirt on him. They had nothing on Kevin Wilson other than, as you mentioned, breaking news, football coaches are hard asses.
Yeah, I mean, like, as the co-conductor of the Kevin Wilson hype train, which is, of course, the Baxendell Express, both of us said pretty much instantly, why did they fire this guy? And the second that stupid press conference was, it's philosophical differences, it was immediately, bring him here now. He clearly did nothing wrong, all right? If he had done anything wrong, they'd have fired him and killed him in the court of public opinion. And clearly that didn't happen. So clearly this didn't happen. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, to me, that Outside the Lines piece was there was less substance to it than there was to the trestle rigging, football camp prizes story a couple years ago. I mean, it literally was the stupidest thing I've read. Like, I feel really bad for some girl whose rowing career was really beat up by not getting the correct medical training, right? But it looked like the classic piece that started with one plan, didn't find it, so they had to write something, and that's what came out. We're going to all have forgotten about this within, like, a week. There was literally nothing to it negative for Ohio State.
But the really big news yesterday for Ohio State, of course, Micah Parsons decommits from Penn State. He is the number one weak side defensive end in the country, number 3 overall prospect in the country in the 2018 class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. And this is a kid from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's not like this is a kid like from California that was committed to Penn State early and decommitted. Kid from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania decommits from Penn State, and now it seems like Ohio State's in the driver's seat. Just your thoughts on Micah Parsons decommitting from Penn State, and if you think he's going to be a Buckeye.
I put this in a bucket of bullets yesterday before he decommitted, and I had no inside knowledge. And I literally said, Spatula Meyer is totally going to flip Micah Parsons. Just ask Noah Spence how this plays out. And honestly, it made me laugh so hard when I saw that he had decommitted from Penn State because this would have seemed obvious for a while. It's the local kid who grew up. His dad's a big Penn State fan. It's the easy choice. And then he visits other places and goes, maybe I don't want to go to school in a podunk backwards valley that they totally, not too long ago, condoned kiddie rape in. Maybe I should go to a school where, I don't know, I'm going to pretty much guarantee myself to be a first-round pick and get to play for national championships. To me, this is, Micah Parsons, it seems like a player who is going to be decommitting from Penn State for a while, and it seems like it's Ohio State well ahead of the pack here. even the Penn State folks seem to say that this is because of Ohio State, not because of anything that they did. And they're probably right. And this is the sort of thing Urban Meyer does, right? He goes into your state, and he takes your best kids, and then he laughs on the way out. And that's just what it looks like it's going to happen with Micah Parsons. So I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever when you can add another top 5 player in the country to the OSU recruiting class for 2018. Urban Meyer is absurd, and this is what he does. He flips kids and he takes them home, and that's exactly what I think is going to happen here in the long run with Micah Parsons. It's been trending that way for way too long for this to play out any way other.
We are just 3 days away from the NFL draft, and I get aroused just saying those words. I cannot wait for the NFL draft. And so let's talk about where the Buckeyes fit in, what round they're going to go in. I think it's pretty clear cut. There's going to be 3 Buckeyes going in the first round. The 3 defensive backs with Marshawn Lattimore, Malik Hooker, Garyon Conley. By the way, I'm not buying for a second that Malik Hooker is slipping in this draft. I think that's smoke screens, like Joey Bosa was slipping in last year's draft. No, he didn't.
Right.
I guess my question for you is, how early do you think Garyon Conley will come off the board in the first round? Do you think there's going to be 3 top 15 picks? Or are we just talking about 3, top 30 picks? Just how early do you think Conley will come off the board?
My gut says top 20. I think a lot of people look at his stock in this film and have said, man, he's almost every bit as good as Marshawn Lattimore. He doesn't have the injury history. And Lattimore's pretty clearly the first corner off the board right now. So if you ask me, I think Lattimore and Hooker are both top 10 picks. I agree with this notion of Hooker sliding being completely ridiculous. Oh, he had to have shoulder surgery because he toughed it out and played really well with an injured labrum this season. That should drop him. No, that's insane, right? I think that the big story, though, is that Garyon Conley went from what a player who a lot of people thought was maybe a second rounder to, hey, let's look closer at that kid, to, oh, wow, this kid's absolutely a first rounder, to somebody's going to trade up for him around number 20 if he hasn't been taken yet. So I think it's 3 first rounders. I think Curtis Samuel's somewhere in the second, maybe even the top half the second. And then I think if Raekwon McMillan falls beyond the top 5 picks of the third round, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Curtis Samuel, what round? You think second round for Samuel?
I think between 32 and 45 is when he goes. The Devin Smith range.
That'd be great for him. Early second round would be fantastic. I've seen some people that think he's going to slip to the third round, and I don't see that. I see somebody plucking him in the second round. I guess it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world if he slips to the third round, but I think Curtis Samuel has second round written all over him, and I would love to see him go early second round, like you're saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Curtis Samuel is the guy that everybody you hear from, like, unnamed NFL sources said, oh, if he's there in the third round, we'll definitely take him. Which means everybody's thinking, oh, he's a steal in the third round because we have a second round grade on him. All right? So somebody's going to take him in the second round. I don't know if he's going to fall into the very back end of the first round, but I do think that there's no way he falls out of the second round because too many teams have him rated as a second round player.
And do you think McMillan, early third round for Raekwon McMillan?
Yeah, early third round. I could see the Patriots taking him with the last pick of the second, too. I mean, if there's ever a player who seems like a Patriots pick, it'd be Raekwon, but I don't think he falls very far either. I think his measurables are really good. He kills his interviews, and I think he's going to be – here's the other thing. We're getting to the point where Ohio State players are getting to the NFL and producing so consistently. You're going to see a lot of Ohio State players whose draft stock actually goes up just because they're Ohio State. They're almost going to be overrated in their status because they're from Ohio State. So Raekwon's a second-round pick. They're a mid-second-round pick. It may even have a little bit to do with the fact that they're like, dude, Ohio State players have been awesome under Meyer in the NFL. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. That's going to continue to be a thing in the NFL, especially when you see guys like Bosa and Zeke going out and doing what they did right away. You know, other guys like Eli Apple playing really well as a rookie. You know, you can point back even to Andrew Norwell, who didn't get drafted and then started for a couple years. That Ohio State shine is going to help kids stack just because they went to OSU and their former players in the NFL have done so well now.
Pat Elflein is the one guy that I think is underrated in this draft, especially because he can play 2 positions up front and play them well with center and guard, and center is such a valuable position. I guess it's fourth round I'm hearing for Pat Elflein. I was thinking, second or third round, when his season ended, but it looks like fourth round, maybe even fifth. What's your prediction with Pat Elflein?
Yeah, I thought fourth for him too. Unless you're one of those giant 350-pound mauler kind of guards, you don't go very high. and the centers are usually the ones who get the most attention in the draft. I think Elflein's probably better than a fourth-round player in the NFL, but I think he's probably not going to go before that. I feel like he's the forgotten guy in this draft class, too. Like, for a guy who had started for so many years for the Buckeyes, a Central Ohio kid, one of the loyal 11 from Urban's first recruiting class.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that we've forgotten about Pat Elflein in this draft, because everybody wants to talk about the 3 first-rounders and whether Samuel and McMillan can move up and try to get it to 4 or 5, right? That was the talk forever. And now that it looks like we're probably going to shake out around 3, people still keep forgetting about Pat Elflein, I remember having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were like, yeah, we're going to get 5 guys picked, maybe 6 if Noah Brown. And I'm like, hello, Elflein. Of course he's getting drafted. And they were like, oh, yeah, I forgot. And I don't know what Pat did to get forgotten, but it seems like nobody really thinks too much about what Pat Elflein's going to do in this draft right now because they're so focused on everyone else. I think somebody's going to quietly pick up a pretty darn good interior offensive lineman in the 4th round. If he falls to the 5th round, I'll be very surprised. I don't really know why people seem to think less of Elflein than they would say, I don't know, a lot of these other players that have come out from OSU in similar spots, but for whatever reason, he's not getting the same hype. Which, of course, now that I've said that, probably means somebody will pluck him in the 3rd round, and we're going to go, wow, great for Elflein, who's flying under the radar, except one team loved him. So who knows at this point?
Maybe somebody will be listening to this podcast. I know all NFL execs listen to this podcast. Not at all. I'm lying. But maybe one will listen and realize Pat Elflein would be a nice pick there in the 3rd round. I'm hoping the Bengals take him in the 4th round. That'd be a good fit for the Bengals, who their starting centers entering the last year of his contract. He's been a little underwhelming, Russell Bodine, and they need guards. So we'll see what happens. I think Elflein would be a steal in the 4th round. And then the 7th and final Buckeye that's expected to go, Noah Brown. You mentioned him. But what round do you think Noah Brown will go in?
If he gets picked, it's the 7th.
Whoa, really? I was thinking 5th. I was thinking 5th.
You're way more optimistic on him than I am. I think there's a lot of reasons NFL teams are going to shy away. Between injury history, lack of film, the fact that he had literally one good game last year. I mean, his entire draft film is one game, right? And like a guy like Jalen Marshall, who's a more athletic player, who had significantly more proven on-field results in college, didn't even get picked last year and ended up being a starter. I think that we want Noah Brown to be picked. I don't know if he's going to actually get picked. And if he does, I think it's going to be late in the draft. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's ready. I think he left a year early for reasons that didn't necessarily have to do with his draft stock. But I think a lot of teams are going to be a little hesitant to take him any earlier than they absolutely have to because he's not going to be a commodity on the board.
Yeah, I think 5th, maybe 6th. I don't see him slipping, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see what happens. This is part of the draft that I love, the drama associated with it, even in the latter round. And we talk about the drama in the 1st round, which is like the best TV you can watch, in my opinion. I'm a little biased, but even in the latter round, the drama. So great stuff as always from the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. You can catch his column every Sunday. It is, of course, The Bucket. Yesterday's column talks about the Buckeyes' possible path to the 2017 National Championship and more, so make sure you check it out if you haven't already. And thank you to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.